Welcome to Perspectives, where we take a deep dive into the issues of the day and where we take a look at people's opinion on such issues. I am Ruth Osime.
And I am Majekodunmi-Oniru. On today's show, we would explore the pressure to financially impress. We have special guests and an exciting show planned, so stay tuned while we get started.
Welcome back to Perspectives here on Arise News. They say all that glitters is not gold. They also say never judge a book by its cover. These phrases spring to mind when it comes to the extreme measures people take in trying to project an image. Living above your means has become an all too common habit in today's society. Such people feel compelled to match the spending habits and lifestyle choices of their much wealthier peers. They want to fit in, do what they're doing, or have what they have. This self-inflicted illogical desire places a very heavy burden on them as they insist on maintaining the status quo, no matter what it costs for them to do so. Spending on misplaced priorities amidst the mountain of unpaid bills is like driving with your eyes closed. You can't see where you're going. In situations like this, it's easy to look at someone else's lifestyle and feel envious. But the truth is, you don't know anyone's financial situation, so why put yourself on a one-man race to financial bondage? It's a different matter if this lifestyle is within your means because you can afford it. But it's an entirely different kettle of fish when you live an illusion of grandeur. Trying to keep up with the Joneses becomes a losing battle as every time you think you're close, someone else sets the bar even higher. And as inflation continues to worsen, the cost of living erodes purchasing powers with no succor in sight. Constantly trying to maintain a false narrative can be exhausting and stressful to your state of mind. It is important to note that the desire to impress others is natural to some extent, but when it becomes excessive or driven solely by external validation, it can lead to stress, anxiety, and a lack of authenticity. Saying true to oneself should be balanced with self-acceptance.
Very well said. This is a subject of personal finance, and who exactly is judging? Let's take some examples. People who are dependent on fixed income from a job, parents, government, or other sources can personally say, I am living beyond my means if monthly income remains insufficient against expenditures. We all know how very important it is to save and build a secret emergency fund, an unexpected medical bill, a new home from a divorce or house fire, or a dream opportunity that needs immediate funding can pop up at any time, especially during those moments of low income. Now let's get back to who is judging. Many times, when we hear someone is living beyond their means, the person most likely recently splurged on a luxury car, house, vacation, boat, party, or acts of charity. The fact that they are able to do any or all of that means that it is within their means, provided the cash flow is ethically derived. One may not be able to afford Gucci tomorrow, but as of today, he or she afforded it. What may be considered as living above your means can be described simply as temporarily desiring or deserving increased comfort, euphoria, or a sense of belonging which brings added joy or happiness. On that note, what happens when we splurge on luxury but fail to meet basic needs or go begging just to fuel that luxury car we just bought? Financial hard times can befall anyone. Those living below their means, within their means, and above their means. There's no single line of success to anything in life, especially personal finance. How you choose to spend your cash flow today should be on your own smart terms. And it's better if you are able to maximize ethical earnings, budget wisely, save significantly, and maximize a secret emergency fund. Much more will be discussed with our special guests, but first, a unique report on the pressure to splurge financially.
One thing that has put a lot of individuals into debt and unwanted scenarios it will be peer pressure and also living above their standards. Peer pressure, the process by which members of the same social group influence other members to do things that they may be resistant to or might not otherwise choose to do. Usually, the term peer pressure is used when people are talking about behaviors that are not considered socially acceptable or desirable, such as experimentation with alcohol or drugs. Some people that go into drugs because they want to be described as the cool kids often don't know the level of damage that it can cause.
I actually don't have a main reason for using it, but it was basically just to fit in, you know. And peer pressure plays a big role in that thing. And I was just stupid, you know. Like I said, I regret the day I used the drug. I regret the day because I didn't know about the withdrawals. Nobody told me about the withdrawals. Nobody told me the effect it's gonna have on me.
In reality, peer pressure can be either a positive or negative influence that one peer or group of peers has on another person. It is often associated with the middle or high school years, but it doesn't necessarily go away once you outgrow your teens. And it doesn't just affect the decision you make about what to wear, who to hang out with, or how to act either. Financial peer pressure can have a huge influence on what you do with your money. Even some that even went through hell to get money still behave as if they were born with it, neglecting the fact that money isn't easy to earn, but you need to work to earn it. Some people go as far as taking loans to look the part, buy expensive clothes to impress at parties, portray themselves as being wealthy to society in order to command respect or feel among. Today on Perspectives, we will be taking a look at ways to avoid being roped into this issue and ways to cut down living a lifestyle of lies.
It's funny that, because I was looking at that video and I was thinking, what has drugs got to do with, but I understand where I was coming from, this peer pressure. But look at the part where you had all those women in their shebi and what have you. And, you know, I remember when I wanted to get guests for this show, nobody that sells products wanted to come on air because they felt, it will look as if I'm talking to them, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, look, that means this is a very common problem. From those who sell jewelry to those who sell accessories.
Are you saying those ones are living above their means?
As in they've had horrible experiences with people who come and buy their goods and don't pay.
They don't want to talk about their customers.
Yes, and they do look as if they're talking about their customers. So it was better that one got people who were neutral but could be objective. Because speaking of customers, somebody was telling me about how some of her customers will buy the jewelry from her, not pay her, and then take it to the pawn shop and sell.
Oh, wow.
Instead of paying for the jewelry, they'll take it to the pawn shop and sell, or they will claim they haven't won it. Meanwhile, you see them on social media wearing the jewelry.
If they sell it at the pawn shop...
No, because when you take your jewelry to the pawn shop, it means you're going to get maybe 10%, 20% of the value. So even instead of even returning the jewelry for not paying, they take it to the pawn shop and they actually collect cash. Then there are those...
That's debt.
The one that was even funny was a woman who drove a car to a venue, and by the time she came out, the car had gone. The company that sold the car to her were telling her, took the spare keys and drove the car away. She thought it was stolen. So there are so many, or you see people who travel every year with their children and their family. At the end of the day, they have not paid school fees. They have not paid rent. So
it does happen, but my thing is, with this topic, is that, is it, with living above your means, is it peer pressure or self-pressure? So I'm not sure that they are actually envying other people as much as they're just trying to live their best life sometimes.
Who are you trying to impress by doing that?
Maybe yourself.
But I have a friend that got your owing all over the place.
A friend, when she got married, she got a house, mansion, beautiful house in the US. Another friend was saying, oh, it's rented. They went online and found out that it's rented. So they're like, oh, she's living above her means. But with that mansion that she got, it got her some opportunities. She's living a good life, and they've sustained it from renting to buying.
But that's what I'm saying. She could afford it.
Right.
There are those who can't. I also heard of another incident of somebody who has a house on the island beyond her pay grade. She couldn't pay even her service charge and called her boyfriend who lives in GRA Ikeja to come and help her pay her service charge. Now, that is definitely living above your means.
But you know, living in the island may get her a job. a stable
made them-
job.
why don't you
she
live in
may
a smaller
meet
place?
new people. She may have friends. She may just be happier.
Yeah,
she
but
may
you
be
can
more
live in a
comfortable,
smaller place.
feel secure, have peace of mind.
How can you have peace of mind when you can't pay your rent?
She'll
Then live in a
call-
smaller place. Can you imagine calling your boyfriend
Yeah.
who owns his house in the Ikeja, that lives in GRA Ikeja, which is a very highbrow area, to come and pay your service charge for your flat on the island? Which means if you cannot pay service charge, it means you can't even pay the rent. And this is like so our guest to discuss. Is this self-imposed pressure you put upon yourself?
So I think
that
it's
you
peer-
decide
it's
that, yes,
self-pressure.
you must live in the
Yes.
right area. You must wear the right clothes. You must. It's lack of self-confidence too. Is also another underlining factor
It's
in
when
this
it's
living
not
above your means.
Yeah, it's when it's not well managed
It's not-
that it ends up affecting them in the long run.
Yeah, but
but
we're not-
sometimes
yeah.
they just want that push.
Who
It's
doesn't?
about pushing your life,
I
pushing
myself,
your
I want to
dreams,
live in
wanting
a-
to live a better life.
I want to live
and
in
if
a
you think
place
you can afford it now and it will bring you income and you have strategies to actually grow, then
that's not being
try your
strategic.
best.
That's
In
being-
life, it's all about creating new
that's
strategies.
being self-delusional. You can live in the island if you want to live on the island. That's your business. But live in a place that you can afford. In fact, your rent should not be up to.
But
a
will
quarter
somebody
of what
rent
you
you a
earn.
place if you can't afford it? You have
How
to
would
pay
they
the
know?
rent.
Yeah, you pay the rent the first year, and then after
Okay.
that, Unko,
Yeah,
don't
so
you have
you-
5 years? Don't you have 6 years? You're going to be there for a long
You should
time.
make the money. Push hard.
You see, it is this pushing hard thing that people lose the plot along the line somewhere. You have to work within reason. Do you understand? I believe that if you're confident, I mean, I have friends who are 100 times richer than I am, but I'm not intimidated by them. And then I have friends who are not as comfortable, and they're not intimidated by me. You should have self-confidence to be able to carry yourself.
So life has this various
Yes,
lines
it
per
does.
person. So some
It
people
does.
they go like
but
this.
you cannot,
and-
yes, but you cannot plan your life based on I'm hoping to.
Your dreams.
You have to be realistic. In other words, if you don't earn any money this year, can you pay your rent?
Absolutely.
Can
Just
you
that I've
live
seen
your
some
lifestyle?
people succeed
Exactly.
off of that. I've seen some people say, okay, well, I cannot afford it today, but I'm going to get it. I'm going to make myself
Exactly.
happy. And I know that with
And it's faith
strategies,
by works,
good things
not
will come.
faith by one man is going to give. One man promised me.
Yeah.
It's faith by works.
You have to be smart with it.
You have to be smart.
Strategies.
You have to
Otherwise,
strategize, yes.
they'll tow your car.
Exactly.
You end up on the street.
I mean, the lady whose car was
The
taken away
friends
from
you made
her.
will run
You
away
can
from
imagine
you.
that. Her car was taken away from her by the person who sold the car to her. So why would you be driving a car that you can't afford to pay, or you can't
Right.
afford to pay the
Right.
whatever monthly
Right.
payments or what have you? You have to be able to cut your coat according to your size.
Absolutely.
You don't have to travel 5 times a year. You don't have to go to every
Very
single
good
party.
advice here.
Yes. You know, you don't have to go to every single party. I mean, I get invited to parties overseas at least 5-6 times a year. Am I mad? How do I justify that expenditure? How do I sleep at night knowing that, oh, I'm owing this, I'm owing that, I'm owing, and some of them, they do it so easily. It has become second nature.
Yeah, I think when debt is involved, that's when you should be extremely careful.
And debt increases
But if
with
it's
time.
cash flow,
Yeah.
Plan and strategize.
Why would you buy jewelry that you can't afford and then you wear it and you post
so
it on
no, you
social
shouldn't
media?
buy it off of debt. So don't say, okay, I'm going to pay you back. But if you actually bought it, that means you had the cash to
there
buy
are
it.
those, have you know, who their own modus operandi is that they will buy so much off you the first time they come and pay you. So by that way, you have won. They have won your confidence
trust
and
them.
trust. Then they now hit you
I know someone
when you
that happened to.
when you least expect it, and they do that in every single area they go to. So what a lot of people who sell these commodities are now doing is that they're now giving each other feedbacks.
Oh,
don't sell
wow.
to so and so person because the person will
She won't pay you back.
Yes,
She has hit hard times.
because she has not even she has hit a lot of victims by buying things off them that first time that she orders and they're not paying.
So it's intentional. It's
Yes,
not that.
she has used that has been her modus operandi.
Yeah.
So now in that sector, the sector of those who sell jewelry or those who
I've
make
never
clothes or sell
understood
clothes.
I will loan you the product, come and pay me back later.
Well, when you buy jewelry, sometimes you can't pay immediately. So some people pay instrumentally.
Then you shouldn't buy what you can't pay immediately. So
Well,
I think that's
some
where
do
the
pay,
issue is.
some do
When you
pay,
want to
some
owe,
don't.
when you want to get
Anyway,
debt.
when we get our guests to come and talk to us about this further. We're heading for a short break, but stay with us. Perspectives will return in just a moment.
Welcome back to Perspectives here on Arise News. It's now time to introduce our guest today. First is Uzor Onwabi. Uzor is a notable senior executive who recently exited a multinational technology company with over 30 years of work experience in technology. She's also a mentor with Fate Foundation, Access Bank's W Community, and Wimbies. Uzor has an MBA degree from Manchester Business School, and she is a Yale Fellow amongst many other achievements. Warm welcome to you to Perspectives today.
Thank you very much.
Sorry, Uzor, it's Nwani, not Mbabi.
Nwani.
Don't worry, I get all sorts of
Our second guest today is Zeal Akaraiwe. He has 20 years post-graduation experience in the financial sector in Lagos, London, and Lusaka, and currently runs Graham Black Advisory, a financial advisory firm focusing on risk management and delivering structured financial solutions for clients. He has built a career and expertise in derivatives and financial market solutions. He continues to leverage his knowledge for market development initiatives, playing several advocacy roles in building the institutional framework for a vibrant financial market in Nigeria. He is a member of the Governing Council of Association of Corporate Treasurers, the ISDA Work Group of the Securities and Exchange Commission, the National Assembly Business Environment Roundtable, and the Derivatives Advisory Group of FMDQ. Zeal holds a BSc in Actuarial Science from the University of Lagos and certifications from the London School of Economics in Risk Management and Cambridge University in Human Diversity. Welcome, guys.
Thank you very much.
But as you can see, today's topic has nothing to do with your professions.
I give an abbreviation.
Today's topic is about the cocoa of the matter. In other words, people who live above their means. Like I was saying to a lecturer earlier on before you guys came on, about people who buy cars that they cannot afford, who travel abroad for summer holiday and they have not paid school fees and what have you. And then earlier on, you brought up one pertinent point, which rocked me a little bit. So maybe you can share that with the audience.
Well, before I share that, you see, we need to also understand something weird about our environment. In the developed world where a credit system exists, people don't buy things. So people who drive cars don't outrightly buy the cars.
That's true.
Technically, they borrow and pay over a period. You lease it. You do your mortgage, you don't buy the house. So part of the pressure we have is the fact that our financial system and our government policy does not support us with a social safety net.
That's a good point, actually.
So that's part of the reason, that's part of the pressure we face, that our government policy does not create a social safety net. And so we have to fund things that we should have paid for over 4 or 5 years. We have to fund them immediately. Second thing which you raised is the fact that in our very religious society, and it's a very thin line, I'm not saying it's right or it's wrong, I'm just saying it's something we need to consider regarding the pressure it creates. Is in the secular world, we'll say, fake it till you make it. Some people fake it, and they indeed make it. In the religious world, it's called faith. Believe and behave as if you have what you don't have.
But do you think when they say that, they expect that faith comes with works?
Yeah, the work is to behave like you have it.
No, but what are you doing towards having it?
But that's besides the point, because what you're doing may or may not succeed, but in the meantime, you are spending as if you have it, in the belief that you will. And it creates pressure. We're talking about what creates pressure, right? It creates a lot of pressure where people start to get this warped sense of what should be and what should not be and what they should do. And if I really believe I will get something tomorrow, why don't I go and borrow against it today?
Yeah, but what are you doing to prepare yourself for when it comes to typing it? I can't just wake up and say, I want to pretend that I have it. I believe I will have a jet and just sit down every day praying.
But faith is an action.
Sorry?
It's not, faith is based on action. So even if you make a commitment, let's say for instance in church, you make a pledge, you know, you must have.
That's what I'm saying.
There must be an action that will drive you to the point where you can, you, at the end of the day, you're able to meet that commitment.
Exactly.
So, when you just, how would I explain it? So let's assume you're unemployed and you make this is very, it is controversial. You make a pledge of a certain amount, which is over and above something you've ever earned. I would have a challenge around that. I'm not saying that you can't believe God to do it, but
I would totally have a challenge around that.
It has to come with work. So you're not working. How are you going to do it? That's my question.
Absolutely.
And also, I think it's unfair, though, to sort of put the blame on the churches. Because like you rightfully said, I'm not going I would love to have a private jet. But I'm not going to say, I believe in faith and I will definitely get this private jet.
Really? Don't take it up there. Let's take it at the
very basic.
I'll give you an example. I need to pay rent. My rent is due in a week, right? I'm running around, I've put proposals in different places, I've applied for contracts in different places, they've not come through. And the landlord shows up today and says, write me a check now or pack out.
And you will write the check.
I'm doing a lot of things. I'm expecting this, expecting that. So let's not even talk about people living ostentatious lives. I know people who have gone to eat on credit, saying, okay, next week, by the time I hustle a little, I will make
but that's
some money.
the problem.
Now, when you say you don't blame the church,
I don't blame the church because the church, like
No,
Uzor
okay,
rightly
let's
said-
not put. We're not putting blame anywhere.
No.
We're just saying the different things that can cause peer pressure.
I'm just trying to be objective here. I'm
Mm-hmm.
just saying, like Uzor just said now, when this church says that you should build your faith, they are expecting you to have things on grounds that it's possible to achieve that aim. You can't just build your faith praying 24/7 in the house. Meanwhile, you're not going out there to do anything about getting this money. You're not putting anything in place to ensure that this thing comes.
People are. No, I'm saying people are putting things in place. But as we know, not everything you put in place, that's how life is, yeah? You don't get everything you ask for. So sometimes what you reasonably expect doesn't happen.
Well, I would
But you
blame
acted
both
on it.
parties.
Parties
So if you
being
look
the
at this
church and
instance,
the
there was a time I
individuals.
went to church and the pastor preached and was saying he needed 10 people to come out and give 1 million naira each. So in the course of preaching and trying to get more people to come out, maybe 6 had come out, he brought someone out to give a testimony. And the lady said, the last time pastor preached like this, I didn't have the 1 million naira, but I came out with faith. I believed that God would do it. So I wrote a check to pastor. And after service, I went to go and be begging. I went to borrow money from people to make sure that 1 million will be in my account before pastor cashes that check. And thanks to God, I did that. And a few months later, I got a job. Now I'm paying back. Now I'm paying back the loan. Who do you blame there?
I don't know. It's a very dicey. It's a very But I want to ask another question. You know, peer pressure has a very powerful effect on behavior. So what are the good and bad sides of peer pressure? Do they have good and bad sides?
They do. So, I mean, peer pressure can elevate your own standards or even your own goals in the sense that, let's say, for instance, you've got somebody who's like a star student or, I'm going to take it from school, but obviously I'm where I'm at, I'm talking about it from the perspective of my daughter and her friends. But then if you look at peer pressure in terms of life, there's so many areas that you can say, okay, you know what, I'm looking up at this person, I like this person, this is my role model. You know, so what kind of things do they have? So for me, but the peer pressure first is what's the value system what's the value you're trying to get out of that? That's the first thing I would look at. So I would say, okay, at the end of the day, what do I get? What am I trying to achieve? And it's not just about following people because, so I like this person because ABC, and that could be your own, I'm aspiring to be like this. So you've put a peer, so that you feel that this is my peer, this is somebody I need to aspire to be like.
Do you think people aspire for material possessions of other people or for themselves?
So unfortunately,
a bit of both.
It's a bit of both because we live in a society where we've seen it. I mean, every single day, people steal government from the government coffers. People do things that are not right.
Could it just be they want to live a good life and not necessarily?
So my question is,
being pressured from someone else's?
What is a good life? I mean, it's relative.
Comfort.
I mean, a good life for you might not be the same as a good life for a security man.
So they want to live their own best life.
Or a good life for somebody who's been a bank MD is very different from a good life for me. I mean, so
that's why it's not somebody else's life
it's relative, but at the end of the day, I mean, what do we all really need? We need food, we need shelter, we need housing, we need
clothing,
security, we need clothing. I mean, everything else it's relative in terms of the values of the items.
Okay.
Yes.
Anyway, speaking of good life, Zeal, let me ask you that men, the pressure on men too also plays a major role because I think some men sometimes are under pressure but are too embarrassed or too proud to let their family, that's their spouse and children, know the true state of things. So can you give us examples of such situations? Or tell me why this is?
Well, I think our society plays a major role in a lot of things, much more than we can even begin to understand. So the societal pressure on men, even outside financing, is very different. And it's not something that's conscious. So many of us men that go through that pressure don't even know. Men don't have as much a support system as women. Right? So a man is very unlikely to go to another man, or anybody else for that matter, to complain about how bad things are. It's not
They don't?
easy. Not that they don't, it's not as easy. Because a man's self-worth in our environment is generally tied to his ability to provide.
Yeah, but women too are pulling their weight now.
I'm not saying they're not, but I'm saying a man generally, the gauge of a good man is generally how well or how much he can provide.
Really?
So when he cannot provide, it's not a situation of, guys, I can't provide because, it's a question of my self-worth is going to be eroded if people find this out.
Oh, wow.
So with men in our society, self-worth and ability to provide are commingled.
Okay, give us an example of that situation you were talking about earlier on. The guy in America.
Okay, the banker.
Yes,
okay.
yes.
So the story of a banker earning good amount of money, his wife earning good amount of money, combined, they were earning an amount of money that was reasonable. This was 10 years ago in Nigeria when the dollar exchange rate was
300
reasonable.
something.
No, it was 160 10 years ago.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
Was it that low?
Yes.
They just added an extra
155, 160, 10 years ago. And he said, okay, look, they had only one child. In order for this child to have the best, that's what we're working for, isn't it? Wife and child go abroad. If he converts his salary to dollars, it's enough to pay the child's school fees, their upkeep, and for him to live a modest life here. And of course, for the wife to do that, she had to go for a master, so her school fees, his. So he looked at the whole thing and said, on this salary, I can fund you guys abroad, and I'll be comfortable here. I'll be okay. I can make that sacrifice for the family.
But with the exchange rate?
4 or 5 years down the line, right? Exchange goes from 160 to 500. His salary, even if it's doubled, is no longer enough. And then he's now in this very weird dilemma. He's no longer making enough to support the family abroad.
This was in America, right?
Yes.
Obviously.
He's no longer making enough to support them there. He cannot increase his salary. What were the options now? Reasonably, people say, bring the family back. It's not an easy decision for someone to make. So he's now under, it's not peer pressure, it's not wanting what other people have, he's just under pressure.
Absolutely.
To sustain his family's lifestyle that he had created.
Yeah, but Ngozi, you had two answers to that solution.
Yeah, so my
To that situation.
Yeah, so I mean, when we talked about it earlier, my view was there are two options: bring the family back, or take the child out of the private fee-paying school and put them in a public school. I mean, truth be told, I mean, life happens. You're not going to, stop unless you're gone. So my view is, let's be practical. First of all, did he really count the cost? Because let's be honest, when you're taking your child abroad,
you want to be in that currency.
You must have had the money to look at, to say, okay, we've got the money for 3 years or 5 years or whatever. And if you didn't have the money, you're doing it on a pay-as-you-go basis. That was already a risk.
I agree.
But
in that currency.
Yes, don't forget, if you're a salary earner, you're living your life on a pay-as-you-go basis.
Okay, anyway, we're going on the break now. Because
Okay,
this is
salary
obviously
and
another angle that we should also delve into. So we'll see you in a couple of minutes. See you right back on Perspectives. Zeal, Mr. Banker. You were, like before, when we were off, we're arguing about Alatere was saying that you need to be able to save, and you need to be able to save enough money to be able to take your children abroad. But I'm on Zeal's side when it comes to this. If your income is regular and your job is steady and the currency doesn't go yo-yo, I don't see any reason why, quite frankly, you can't live a certain kind of lifestyle as long as your income can support it whilst you're doing it.
I hear you, but let's step back a bit. For you to decide you want to take your child abroad or move your family abroad, it's a major decision. You don't just wake up and do that, right? So there must have been some financial planning that went into that decision prior to your making that decision. So, and in that financial planning, you would have at least, personally, I would expect you to have at least maybe considered at least at minimum a year, possibly more.
Absolutely.
That makes sense, yes.
So that you're not under severe pressure, if things change. Unfortunately, what may be happening, I can't speak for anybody off the top of my head, is people say, oh, so there's the peer pressure around, oh, I want to send my children abroad. And you're asking yourself, okay, I mean, like in my daughter's school, she just got into year 8. Some of her friends left in year 7. They're going off to the UK, and I'm thinking to myself, wow, they must have obviously had a plan, because in that period, the pound went from 900 and something to over to 1,200 or wherever it is today. So I'm saying to myself, okay, you must have had a plan to prepare yourself to go and take your child into a school where you're spending...
Yeah, but even if you prepare yourself for the 2 years, like you rightfully said, you want to
still
take your
have to
children
pay.
abroad. If actually 1 or 2 years or even 3-year plan, and then the dollar now goes haywire, what can
Let me
come. But let's forget going abroad. I don't know many people who put their children in private primary or secondary schools in Nigeria that have 6 years school fees saved.
It's so important.
That's
I don't know many people. I know people with good jobs that have a regular steady job and based on their annual salary can afford the... I don't know many people that rent a place and have 10 years rent saved up. They pay...
I agree with you.
So when we talk about, let's forget the exchange rate because that can be complicated.
Okay,
how many people do you know that say, look, you know what, I've just landed this great job, see how much I'm earning, I can now afford to increase the quality of life of my family. How many of them can tell you, based on this, I can, if everything stops now, I can continue for 5 years? Not
I can tell you that I know people that can do that.
I'm not saying there is nobody, Toria. I'm saying how many of them.
But that's almost the only way to avoid financial stressors.
Yeah, but you
can lose your job at any time, and that drops you down to zero income. So you live below your means until you save and have emergency funds.
But you're speaking very idealistically.
Exactly.
The whole reason this show...
Idealistic is realistic.
No. The whole reason you called this show is because what you're saying doesn't happen.
Yes, and
So
people
let's
live
not
above their
pretend
means.
like that's what everybody should do.
But it can happen though.
But hold
Does
on
it?
a second. What usually happens is, let's assume you're earning X today, and then tomorrow your salary goes up to X plus Y. Automatically your spending goes up to X plus Y. So so what happens?
Your savings though.
No,
should
your
also go to
spending
X plus
goes
Y.
up. But what happens is you start spending more. Far more than you should. So, I mean, coming back to the point,
You even have to talk about inflation.
Yes.
Because you're not taking
Anything
inflation into consideration.
exactly. Exchange rate,
even the
inflation,
savings
look at
that you're making, you start to bite into it.
Of course.
Because you're spending a lot more.
and then not only that,
That
the
will normally
savings
spend.
has less value. But where I'm actually going is that because people, you're earning a certain amount, you're thinking, okay, I want to live like this. Then the next time you're earning a bit more, you take it up a notch.
Yeah.
And before you know it, you're spending even more than what you're already earning. And probably not even saving at all, or saving very little.
But I have a hard time increasing my spending if the savings hasn't increased to a certain level. So I wouldn't buy a $100,000 car if I'm not saving for 5
That's
years.
the reason why we're talking about
generally.
is that we're talking about those
Generally.
that do not have that self.
I know, so I'm just giving this example.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. But
I'm saying
that's
it's possible to be able to
nobody's saying
say.
it's impossible. But the essence of this conversation today
Is that most
that
people
most
live
people
because
live
they
above
above
their
their
means.
means.
And sometimes
Absolutely.
one even wonders that whether it conceals deeper pressing problems. Like,
Yes.
let's even delve into
for
that
example,
area,
let's make it slightly more general. A lot of people live above their means because they are earning. So when you say above their means, let's take what Uzor said. There's a minimum standard of existence that we should have. Clothing, food, shelter. We look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs. There's a minimum. Now, what responsible governments have done is to create a social safety net so that generally your population does not fall below a certain standard, even if you don't have a job.
Correct.
When you don't have that social safety net, which we don't, then you have a minimum wage, right, that is below your ability to survive and exist in a way that enhances human dignity. It means that everybody, to live, must live above their means, one way or the other. So if you earn 30,000 a month, you're human. I mean, let me give a live example. I had a driver once. He was earning a certain amount every month, but always borrowing. All these apps and all that. So I sat him down. I said, look, I'm in finance. Let's sit down. And we knocked off his expenses, his children's school fees, his rent, how much he gives his wife, how much he gives his mother. When you knock all those things off, this man was left with 5,000 naira a month.
Wow.
That's it. What am I going to reduce? That's what he was left with. Half the time he lived, in Igbo form, for those that know, I live in Lekki Phase 1. A lot of times he would walk to work. because he couldn't afford transport.
But even here,
so what should I tell
now.
him? If you move further away, you pay less rent, more transport. Should you not send your children to school? And I'm talking very meager amounts. So I was like, so what does he do? Those are his means. When we talk about living above your means, there are two categories we should look at. One is people who have a means, but the level of existence is above their means. They have no choice. Then people who have not just surviving, but they have enhanced they are living above their reasonable means. So they want a luxurious life that they can't afford. Then there are those who want a basic life that they can't afford. Different category of thinking.
Yes, I agree that.
So the ones we're talking about, I believe, are the ones who want a luxurious life that they can't afford. That's where the crime is, in my opinion.
Where it's almost like greed. It's self-inflicted.
Yes.
All of us are friends. Okay, Uzor just bought the latest car.
Yes.
Why would I want to buy the same thing?
You want this type of car.
I want Uzor's kind of car.
It's not that you don't have a car. You want this type of car. It's not that you don't have a house. That's a different.
When they go into debt is when it becomes a problem. And then the debt now becomes
so bad. I mean, there was an instance. There's so many examples of a lady who was in the plane, and you know the story, Zeal. She was in the plane, and lo and behold, she saw one of her debtors who was traveling business class with her children. Meanwhile, she had not paid school fees for 2 terms. Now, even those who sell tickets will tell you that people will come buy tickets on credit, and they will not pay back.
The person who was in business class had not paid her daughter's school fees that she was traveling with.
Not only was she was in business class with her kids.
And didn't pay school
fees. And she had
not
paid school fees for 2 terms.
Okay.
Then you have people who sell tickets. A lot of people who sell tickets refuse to come to the show because they're like, look, Ruth, if I talk about this thing, they will think it's them I'm referring to. And I said, that means it's a very pertinent problem. One example you give, there are about 20 others. Somebody else told me how they will buy the jewelry from her, not pay her back, and then go and pawn it.
I think problem is people who are allowing debt. No, you allow someone to you cannot buy that jewelry right now. Let me tell you, this is Nigeria.
Like I was saying you earlier on, there are some, I discussed with you too, there are some who are charmers. They will come, that first order, they will buy so much and pay you instantly, and you'll be like, Jesus, there's a God. Maybe like that woman.
Come back again.
1 million to pay church. I believe in a living God. I serve a living God. We all do. Do you understand? And then she comes back the second time and orders twice as much.
Pay, please.
So what now happens is that everybody now goes, like if all of us are in the selling business, you sell jewelry, you sell shoes, you sell cars, we will call each other, be careful about so and so personal.
Because?
Exactly. Now my problem is that, does this not also conceal an underlying problem?
I believe so.
In the sense that you seemingly have enough. Why must you feel you have to have more to validate yourself?
I think we should also consider the fact that in our society today, there's a lot, in my opinion.
That's where peer pressure comes in.
So appearances.
In the past, growing up as a child, peer pressure could be defined very simply as the people around you. In the world today, peer pressure is no longer just the people around you. By the time you go on Instagram and you go on the internet,
that's social media things.
Social media. So what then happens is, and a lot of people are putting out things on social media that are not true.
Correct.
Right? They are doing it for the gram, isn't it? And a lot of younger people in particular, even some older people, don't know how to filter and differentiate reality from fiction. And so that creates pressure. Now, Torera will not agree that it should create pressure, I agree, but it does. It does. Now, whether it creates the pressure because you are not able to decipher truth from reality, or like Uzor said, you don't have a good sense of self-worth, different reasons, but the fact is, it does create pressure. And people then act on that pressure. That then becomes very, very unhealthy for the entire system. So when you then want and start to desire things that other people have that you can't afford, and the system does not help you filter, or does not, in our own system, for example, where we do not punish crime and we do not reward people that obey the law, you then find that there's a lot of attitude of anarchy and do what you must do to survive. And when you have pressure and a system that encourages inadvertently anarchy, they are going to find people no longer having moral boundaries. People are then look at a lot of people, you wake up today, you have no idea. Tomorrow you find out Zeal lives in a 40-bedroom house in Banana, has 40 cars. In the past, people are going to be like, how? And they would even distance from me because we don't trust this guy. But today it's changed.
I was going to say, that's what
today it's changed.
Yeah.
Guess what? So when you do that, when you talk about this, when we start to reward people that outwardly live a certain life and seem a certain way, then you can't really say people should not attempt or aspire to live that lifestyle.
Okay. Yeah, let's go we're going on a break soon, and then Uzor, you can come in and give us your own videos. Might see you soon. Perspectives. We'll be right back. Okay, Uzor, you were talking about visibility and appearances.
Yes.
So tell us what you...
So what I find is that, I mean, here in Nigeria, you drive up to for a function and maybe your car is not as nice as everybody else's car. They won't let you in. But you see somebody else drive up in a Range or whatever kind of car that looks nice and presentable, they will let them in. And that is also the mindset we have sort of like created into our society. I mean, security people expect you go to a function, they have parking. You're not begging for your car to be parked. They expect you to tip them. You're coming downstairs, you're leaving a function, they'll be hailing you as you're going, madam, this, everybody, or fine auntie, one, or something. But it's just amazing how it's all about appearances. They don't know whether you have 1 naira or 5 naira in your bag. But the truth of the matter is, we are so caught up in appearances. Oh, this is so-and-so that lives in so-and-so or drives so-and-so. Those things matter. That is why people will do or try to do anything for this
Speaking
money.
of appearances, I don't know whether you guys saw that video that went viral about some 70-year-old woman. She turned 70 and was actually, did you see it? She turned 70 and took the microphone and said anybody not wearing her ashebi, that didn't buy the ashebi, should leave her party.
Oh,
yes, live.
I haven't
It went viral. And you see, this ashebi thing too is also one of the most expensive habits that women have. They must buy ashebi for every single party.
Why?
Imagine that. No. Some people do that.
I told Uzor 2 stories I came across this week, 2 very pathetic stories. One of teenage boys, oldest I think was 19. Long story short, the boys came together and agreed to kill the girlfriend of one of them for money ritual.
Wow.
And they got caught. Another story I saw on the same day, 2 girls, they couldn't have been more than 20 or 21,
about the 20 and 21.
Accidentally killed a man that they were trying to sleep with so that they could rob him. Now you ask yourself, what type of pressure is a teenager under that he's doing anything like money ritual? It's not peer pressure from his... It's a societal mindset that we need to address. And that's what Uzor just said. We have enthroned appearances. If you become an elected official in Nigeria today, there are banks that will run after you with offer letters, offering you money beyond your means. And that creates pressure. Even having the job creates pressure because people expect you to steal. We would come out in public and say stealing is bad, but when you get into that position, they expect you to spend more than you earn.
Alternatively, create contracts that will help them make money.
So you need to find out what we're talking about peer pressure. Let's also reflect and understand that at a very subconscious level, our culture creates peer pressure.
Correct.
Our culture, like what you said, what I drive, I'm assessed by how I look.
That's so sad.
That's the entire assessment.
You know why I say that? Because if you notice, there's been quite a high rate of deaths recently. Not recently, in the last recent times, few times. And a lot of them are, a doctor told me that between men ages of 45 and 60. And most of the time that these deaths occur, they're usually heart attacks. And the cause of this heart attack is stress and depression. So to a certain extent, how would you advise that people put themselves under less pressure? No, seriously.
That's what I was saying
under less
earlier,
pressure.
That
because
everyone said that's you.
No.
For solutions instead of just talking about the problems. Extremely important to save money.
Yeah, but that's if you have it to save.
We're talking about a situation whereby someone will spend half of their income and send somebody abroad without saving.
I gave you the example of my driver. There is nothing.
No matter how much it saves.
That 5K per month would add up to what?
That's what he has left to eat
to
with.
Eat, to transport himself.
To eat and transport.
Yes, I just told you.
I thought I was saving.
No.
And he doesn't have enough, so he's not earning enough.
Yes, but he was
So he has to cut out. He has to ask you for accommodation.
He was earning 3 times minimum wage. I say, remove him and look at the people.
It's the inflation that has caused it. If the inflation wasn't that bad,
let me give you an example. Let's look at it this way.
I like the solution part.
One, you have people. I don't like blaming government for everything, right? But see, it is government's responsibility to create a social safety net. The absence of that social safety net creates pressure. People fall sick and go to hospital, and they need an MRI. An MRI is 85,000 naira. How many people do you know below or minimum wage to even that earn even 100,000 a month can afford to bring out not many. I'm using examples of people I've come across.
If they eat healthy, they may not.
Well, that has nothing to do with the price of sliced bread. But the issue is really is that whether or not they're even wealthy or poor or whatever category, I understand what you're saying, Zeal. Is that like my driver, for instance, now, if he's ill, he's not going to go to hospital. It's self-imposed. Oh, somebody says I should try this, somebody says I should try that. Yeah. Do you understand? But I think for those ones, unfortunately, who cannot live deserving the kind of lifestyle their salary can give them is because of inflation. This your driver now, even if you're paying him 100,000, there was a time 100,000 you could live off it comfortably. Yes. 100,000 of today is nothing.
So he has to live within his means.
Even living within, he used to live within his means.
It's just like what if I'm saying that his means may be 150,000 and he's earning 100. What should he do?
No, but his means are like that now because price has gone up.
So he has side income.
He has a deficit. But he's a driver.
He's a driver. How is he going to
get side income? Where's he going to get this?
And there was a time he could live off this 100,000 naira comfortably and even save.
So let me give you an example. So my driver, I'm going to use my driver as an example. Last year, he borrowed money to pay rent because he was evicted from his property and he had children.
How many years rent did he have to pay?
So his property was in contention. So apparently they're taking it to the rental tribunal, etc. Okay. Anyway, long story short, he borrowed money to pay rent for a new place. And I remember speaking to him, this was late last year, I remember speaking to him earlier in the year and said, oh, by the way, I hope you're saving money. In the interim, we had increased his salary twice.
Oh, okay.
Just to make sure that, look, we're kind of keeping pace with the current rate of living, of cost of living. I said to him, oh, by the way, I hope you're saving money. So just a few days ago, we had another conversation. I said to him, your rent, I'm sure, is probably due because it's about this time last year. He said, yes. He said, oh, so what are you doing? And he's having a discussion with his landlord.
Had the rent increased or it was still the same rent?
No, same rent. I said to him, why are you having a discussion? He said, because he can't give his landlord the full year's rent. He doesn't have it. He has other issues to deal with. I said to him, but have you thought about it this way? If the landlord throws you out, you're back to square one. You don't have a place, you've got children you've got to look after, and you don't have where to sleep. So what is more of a priority? I understand you have family to sort out and all that, but where you sleep is super important.
It definitely boils back down to the poverty
You've just pointed out another pressure in our society that we don't address.
Yes.
Somebody earns money every month, but is requested to pay rent for
every year. Yes.
That is one of the... I think that's the biggest bane of...
That's part of the issue. You're meant to pay... Rent is supposed to be, to some extent, pay as you go.
Yes.
But you're telling people, first time you get rent in most parts of Lagos, you're telling someone to pay 2 years' rent upfront.
And after they pay that 2 years, to get the money back, to pay it next year.
That also creates a lot of pressure.
Anyway, absolutely. Like, I wish we had more time as always. The hour just flies so fast. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Uzor. Thank you so much, Zeal.
Thank you.
Being with us. And let's just pray that the society become a much better place for us financially to be able to manage our monies. Anyway, like I said, don't spend what you don't have. It's a recipe for disaster. Learn the difference between wants and needs and prioritize accordingly. In a world that profits from your self-doubt, liking yourself is a rebellious act. Don't lose what is real by chasing what only appears to be. If outside validation is your only source of nourishment, you will hunger for the rest of your life. Don't miss out on your life because you're too busy scrolling through someone else's. And always remember, like I say all the time, life is an Ellen curve. And that's all we have time for today. You've been watching Perspectives here on Arise News with me, Ruth Osime.
And with me, Olatorira Majekodunmi-Oniru. Minimalists have discovered the art of living beautifully on the most minimal budget. And maximalists have discovered the art of attaining their affluent dreams with minimal startup capital. We should focus more on combined enjoyment and shared knowledge than on the source or sustainability of a neighbor's massive swimming pool or a friend's brand new luxury car. Enjoy your life of pushing your dreams, socializing freely, and living life on your personal terms. Smart finance and greater humanity are two keys to a better world today. Our world needs a much stronger dosage of healthy enjoyment, respect, and love. Thank you for watching Perspectives. Thank you to our special guests for joining us today. Have a great weekend. See you all soon. Goodbye.